Yeah,
All right.
cool. So, kind of changing that into our last topic of uh, Catachan or Astra Millitarum Imperial Guard. We've got our resident lore expert Kenny here to talk about the new changes to Astra Militarum and Imperial Guard and Catachan, kind of the origins of them, where they are now, and if you were going to get into them, what kind of things would you build towards? So, kind of take it away, Kenny. What's going on with Catachan?
Okay. All right. So, it, all right. Get one thing straight. I'm a fluff guy. I prefer the narrative for 40K, and so therefore my army's actually tailored towards the narrative. So, when I built my army, I literally go, okay, if they said a battle company consists of 5 platoons, each platoon has 5 or 6 support squads, or heavy weapon support squads, and 2 support squads. That's what I'm going to try to get my army to look like competitively as best I can. I was pretty disgruntled when they got rid of the platoons because that made it so much easier to keep a fluffy army list versus, oh, now I get to pick a heavy weapons team versus, oh, I now can have everything that goes with the platoon, which that was a huge change. Was and some people that ran guard actually preferred, they didn't like the platoon because they didn't like having to go, all right, so if I take was it a battalion requires what, two true choices no matter what, you had to have 2 platoons with the bare minimum of 2 squads, and some guys didn't like doing that, and I get that. That's, they preferred running more tanks or whatever. And the lore has changed a lot. Catechins originally started out, you know hey, we're a company based group. They took the regiment and broke it down into battle companies and would send the companies wherever they were needed. Rarely did they fight as a full regiment. Now they do. That was one of the huge changes that I noticed, is that they went from, oh, you're just a little simple little battle company, that's how you do it, to, no, we're getting rid of that. We're just going to fold you back, because in old canon, the regiment was, it was rare to see a Catechin regiment as a whole. It was more common to see them at a company level basis. So my army started out as the company level basis, and I want a battle company, so I'm, what, I think a platoon and 16 heavy weapon squads short of meeting that criteria. So,
I think
but
Kenny might be one of the very few people that knows how far or how well they fit into that that tree.
So, so if we dial it back just a second, Kenny, what are Catachan? Where do they come from? And what's special about them?
all right, so they come from a death world, and apparently in 40K canon, at least they kept the one thing straight, is that it's considered one of the, if there was a top tier death world, they're one of them. And because they're a death world, it's, they rely on the outside to keep them fed, weapons, ammo, everything else, but they breed tough, hard ass people, and which make great elite troops. And because the whole planet's a jungle, their eliteness is jungle fighting. The rules reflect the fact that they're in a low gravity world by giving them strength 4, which I do miss the original fact that they really had pushed that Catechins were hand to hand experts. And in previous rule sets, third, I think all the way up till sixth, they were weapon skill 4 versus strength 4, which you want to throw a Marine player off your weapon skill 4. And I used to get I love that look when they're like, "You're what?" And yeah, weapon skill 4, baby. Let's have at it. And but now they've switched it to where they now have that high strength, which is still nice because you still get the look versus, all right, I may not hit you as much, but guess what? I can actually wound you better than what you thought I could. So that is
And that's
nice.
in conversely to a normal or strength 3 guardsman or Astra Militarum guy.
Yeah, strength. Yeah, is now strength 4, which when you're popping, orcs, that's a good example. You're actually wounding them on a 4 better versus a 5 or a 6, and that makes a difference, particularly when you're guard, or at least if you run a fluffy army like me. You kind of like, oh, I kind of need to be able to beat down something, and that's a
He
nice
runs
way
it
to do it.
fluffy enough that he is probably one of the more aggressive foot IG players I've ever played against. He'll try to run it right down your throat.
And so, speaking a little bit into the fluff and that knowing that you make fluffy armies, I've gotten the chance to see your army kind of evolve from 7th into 8th edition, and it was
Mm-hmm.
almost entirely infantry, 100% infantry, and then now I'm seeing you start to bring some tanks in. Is that new to the 8th edition
Okay.
fluff and lore?
Actually, yeah. Or in 8th, actually, the crossing started in 7th. And I started to notice, at least in mention here or there, that Catachan regiments were they had their own armored companies or their own armored regiments. They're just considered very few and far between because Catachans are big, so they're not necessarily meant to stick themselves in tanks, but there's obviously a small enough group where they could do full-blown regiments. So, and the reason why I even started doing tanks, to be quite honest, is because when it comes to heavy weapon slots, a mortar team, a laser cannon squad, all those, they're cheap, which is nice, but I started to use tanks to eat up points, to be honest. If I run a brigade and I'm just sitting there, it's like I'm actually building more sentinels so I can get rid of the idea of using tanks. But now that I've actually started using tanks, they're kind of fun. Not gonna lie.
And Catachan tanks, like, so the rules for the infantry is that they're strength 4, and then the tanks are
Yep.
that they re-roll all the variable weapon dice, right?
It's all variable weapon dice. So, and it's on shot count. So, like a battle cannon, you roll a d6. So you roll a d6, and let's say I roll a 2. Because you're a Catachan, you get to re-roll it, and you have to stick with the second result regardless, which is nice. And if you're using Grinding Advance, a really nice perk is because a battle cannon is a single shot cannon. If you go to fire it a second time, you get to roll that dice again because it's a second complete separate shot, which some guys didn't like. I just found that out recently. I just used to go, okay, I use Grinding Advance, and I just roll the 2 dice, and I actually was shorting myself because I really didn't know that, that's considered 2 separate shots. So where I was just doing, it's one combined. It's not. It's actually 2 separate shots.
Yeah.
But like with Wervins, and mortars, anything that you're rolling a random. So like a Wervin, you get 4 dice. You pick the lowest one that and re-roll it, and that's the only one you roll. You only get to pick 1 dice though.
Yeah.
And it's just nice. It just allows, particularly with Psychic Awakening, you can now give your super heavies the choice to take regimental traits. And I could see the Hellhammers and Beyblades and Shadow Swords getting a little extra nasty with that little reroll for their random shots for their battle cannons, and that can ruin someone's day, going from I only hit you twice to I can hit you now 5 times.
So on that thought, when we're actually able to play in person, I mean, I know some people are playing online, but when we started going to see tournaments and stuff, what do you feel like the meta is going to be going towards?
You'll most Catachan players that I see run probably about half of them have tanks and then foot, which seems to be kind of the standard mix for even regular guard. But you'll see more of the Wervins. You'll see the
Hellhounds, right?
anything that Yep, Hellhounds. Hellhounds are nice. Or what's trying to think of the name of the other one. Has the chemical the chemical cannon.
The Forge World Hellhound?
Yeah.
The Artemia or something like that? Artemia pattern Hellhound?
Something
Yeah,
like that.
it's just D6 shots -2, but 2 damage apiece, and it blows up for like 2d6 mortals or something
4.
like that.
Something crazy.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Talk about running something down
yeah,
your
it's
opponent's throat.
crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's kind of shifting back to the original meta almost.
Yeah. It most like I said it. Their bonus if you're all right. So stepping out of Catachan. If you're a guard player, if you really want to run that kick your teeth in army, you actually pick different regiments to fill out. So like you take the hit and run. So you run like a heavy detachment and make them tolerant to take advantage of their hit and run, which is really nice. But then you can combine it with like Catachan to run a group of Catachans to take advantage of their rerolls for just pounding. That's the great thing. They're great for artillery. That's the best way to use Catachans is if I want a group that's going to just pound you from a distance with random shots, they're the group to go with. And which is kind of nice because it kind of gives you the idea that even in old fluff, they used to use mortar squads. And what they do is essentially the mortar squads would beat the piss out of everything in front of them as the whole group would advance. And now they kind of use that same idea, saying that they're being supported by tanks, and the tanks are doing and the basilisks and the Wervins are softening up the lines as they push forward to get in hand to hand and smack some
So
people
I
around.
actually haven't seen that in Fluff. Does that exist in Fluff where different guard regiments will come together to do something? Or is that just a
Oh
competitive
yeah,
thing?
no, it's a fluff thing. If I'm trying to think of the novel I just read. Um, oh, it basically it was a tank crew, and they had combined with another unit, and they were essentially working together. Where the other one was another regiment of artillery, and the artillery was beating the positions while the tanks would ferry out and then essentially set a trap for the chaos guys to come in, and then the tanks would try and take out their vehicles and then use the artillery to cover their retreat because there were so few of them and chaos was just wrecking the planet they were on.
Man.
So where do you kind of hope in the future? We saw that, like you said, the Catachan, or actually, it's a better question. How was Catachan affected by the new psychic awakening stuff? From a lore standpoint, then we can go into rules.
From the lore standpoint, very little. Um, as far as rules go, the perks of like the Sentinel, there's a stratagem for the Sentinels that allow them as a group to focus fire on one vehicle, and they get a perk for I can't remember if it was like a +1 or something, which is nice. Also, man, I kind of now want to run and grab my book and take a look at it.